on, guys? It's K-Dub here with another episode of CryptoZombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Yes, my friends, I am finally back. It has been a week. It feels far too long since I've been on YouTube, and I am very happy to be back. As you guys know, I was at the Bitcoin Miami conference, which we did actually say in my previous video that I had put out that there was a chance of a dump on the day of the conference. Why this happens, I have no idea. For the past 3 conferences that I've gone to, it has always been a buy the news, sell the event type of an event. So that did happen. We got the dump. And I did say, if you didn't check out the video, you guys, I will drop it above, that if we did lose that $45,000 level, we were probably going to go back to that $39,000, $40,000 area, which in fact Bitcoin did. And you could see the market cap overall of all cryptos is back below $2 trillion again. So don't worry, guys, I'm back. That means price is going to pump, right? No. Okay, so let's talk about what is going on right now, because there are some macroeconomic factors in play that we need to speak specifically about Bitcoin. And one thing, just if you guys hadn't seen, inflation has risen by 8.5%, CPI jumps 8.5% in March, which is the highest since 1981. Now, something else that we need to talk about is the fact that the Bitcoin and NASDAQ correlation has reached the highest levels ever in its history. Now, we know this is probably due to the fact that there are a lot of institutional buyers coming into crypto, and they're going to treat it the same way that they would treat traditional stocks. Now, as you guys can see right here, we were talking about this golden cross over here on the 50 moving above the 100. However, one thing I do just want to point out that makes it sort of a neutral bullish cross is the fact that even though, yes, we did have the 50 moving above the 100, we actually had the 100 on a downslope with the 50 on an upslope. You see? So it's actually making a bit of an X. Now, something that would have been more bullish is if the 100 had actually been sloping up like this, and then we had the 50 sloping up through it. So we had 2 upsloping crosses, right? That's not what we got. And we also got rejected by the 200 daily moving average, which is arguably considered pretty bearish short term, right? Now, before we move on to the charts, and I'll give you my opinion on everything, you may have seen this video gaining a lot of popularity over on Kitco News with Garrett Soloway, who has been very short-term bearish on Bitcoin. Short to mid-term, in fact, he thinks Bitcoin could go below 20,000, even test somewhere between $10,000 and $13,000. Now, is that a possibility? And if that's going to happen, then why even hold Bitcoin, right? We should just sell right now, wait for the dip, and buy back in between 12,000 and 24,000, right? If that's where it's going. Well, that's what I want to talk about today, because not only do we have guys like Gareth coming out calling for these really short to mid-term bearish calls for Bitcoin, we also had an article coming out from Arthur Hayes, who actually is the previous CEO, the former CEO of BitMEX, saying that currently it's a trap, and he's calling for retests of at least or likely around the $30,000 level for Bitcoin. So we're going to talk about all that today, guys. Stick around. I have a lot I need to go over. I have a whole week of content we need to go over, but I'm going to try to keep it relevant to what's happening right now. Thank you so much if you're sticking around, if you're watching. I know this was a lot to go over, very long video. Make sure you stick around to the end because, my friends, there is about to be a massive shock in the economic markets. How will that affect Bitcoin? Well, we do have some historical whale data to go over. There is a silver lining to the cloud, but it could be a bumpy ride to the moon. So that being said, if you are not subscribed, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. And if you're wondering, yes, my voice is a little bit scratchy. I seem to have lost my voice at the conference, lots of loud music, etc. So we went over this already. I explained the fact that really essentially we have this pink line right here, which is the 200 daily moving average. You can see once we break above this, it tends to get relatively bullish. Breaking below it, relatively bearish. So currently we are on a downtrend. We are below the 200 daily moving average, and we have a lot of these gurus calling for lower levels, right? So what you could see right here ultimately is really we're just in the same channel. Now, I know it seems very aggressive because, you know, essentially we went from the top of the channel up here, which was around that $48,400 level, and dumped all the way down to the bottom. But ultimately, if we just have a look, this is what we've been looking at on the channel, right? We have this upward slope, we have this downwards upward sloping channel, and it's just been bouncing in between there. So whether or not you look at this as a rising wedge or whatever pattern you see right here, you can see that we did have this support right right here, it was acting as resistance, and it did just flip support. So, without looking into the midterm, $20,000, $13,000 Bitcoin price, I would say that at these levels, we should look for some kind of a bounce, not necessarily saying that we'll get up to that $50,000 level, but you can see right here, massive critical resistance right here at around that $44,500 level. So if you are looking to trade this, not financial advice, obviously anything could, happen. The FOMC meeting could come out and say, we're raising it 100 basis points, right? And then everybody freaks out and runs for the hills. But technically speaking, according to this chart right here, it does look like we are forming a temporary bottom, and we should at least make an attempt up here to around the $44,500 level. And then we'll have to assess Bitcoin from there. So one thing that I want to point out, interestingly, shout out to the Real Plan C. So he says that the floor Bitcoin price of accumulation phases was within 0 to 29 days of the last 3 crosses. So this is a red flag, right? You can see every single time we had these crosses, 29 days later, we had that dump to the level, right? Here we go right here in 2019, 15 days later, boom, we had that dump to the level. Right here in 2020, it actually dumped on the day. Now, currently, we have actually had this cross 38 days ago, and we haven't really seen the dump down to that level yet. So he says, Captain, where is the splash? Well, if we were to dip down to that level, that would bring us to about $27,681. And according to Plan C, that would actually be the bottom, according to this data that we have, going all the way back to 2014, right? So if we just zoom in and have a look at what's happening today, you can see that we are being held down on this weekly EMA. In fact, we are sitting below it. Now, if we are to stay in this bull market, or whatever you guys consider it, some people say we are in a bear market. Technically, we are in a bear market according to being under the 200 daily. But what you can see right here is that we actually would want to stay above this purple level right here, the 89. And you could see that we had multiple bounces on that level. It was looking quite bullish. Currently, we are coming down and attempting to retest it again. Now, if we do fall below this, you can see that we have this 100 weekly moving average. That is sitting at around $35,400. I do believe that we would have a bounce at those levels. So sort of what we're looking at, if you can take this with what I'm saying, right now, we're looking for a bounce up to around the $44,500 level. If we get rejected at $44,500, then we are probably going to come down to $35,000. So that's pretty much the short-term outlook for Bitcoin that I'm looking at. And I would be looking to trade those levels, not saying you should trade them if you're interested in trading. I do have a tutorial popping up above. There's over $8,000 in bonuses below, but that would be the short-term trading levels. Now, if you want to know my opinion on the absolute worst case scenario, Gareth Soloway says it could go below 20,000. Well, if we have a look right here, guys, historically, Bitcoin has never fallen. Well, okay, technically it has wicked below it, but it's never not found some form of support, okay, on this 200 weekly moving average right here, this bottom pink line right here. So yes, we occasionally will get that quick fake out. Everybody's afraid. They think that, the Bitcoin price is over. It's going to zero. Why did I buy this stupid crypto, right? And then it tends to bottom out at that level. You can see we had a bottom down here, right? Between January of 2015 and August of 2015. And then right here, when we had that 50% dump where we did lose that purple level, right? That's why we don't really want to lose the 89 on the EMA. Okay, boom. Right here, we consolidated at the bottom. We came back up during the COVID crash, even the COVID crash. Look at this, massive capitulation, ultimate fear. And yet we still ended up closing the next week above the level. Very, very important level, right? So currently that is sitting at around 21,261. However, keep in mind, unless you're anticipating a crash directly down today, which I'm not, obviously I would, anticipate something, more like this, a move down like that. Well, what ended up happening is this would actually continue to move up like this. So maybe according to Plan C, maybe by the time we do reach it, could be sometime around the end of the year, and maybe we do hit that $27,000 level that he was speaking about. But at that point, obviously the 200 weekly would have risen. And you can see that the 200 weekly has never been in a downtrend ever in the existence of Bitcoin. It has always trended upwards. It's never been in a downtrend. So it doesn't look like it's looking to change anytime soon. And it does take a lot of days to change that trend, right? 200 weekly, you'd have to be trading for 2 years or so to really affect that trend to the downside. And the other thing that I pointed out was we did have the super guppy on the daily moving out of the red into the neutral zone, going into the light blue. Now, of course, we can always have something happen for the first time ever. There's always a chance something happens for the first time. But historically speaking, anytime that we've ever broken these red trends and we've gone neutral, we tend to then eventually go into a green trend, which oftentimes minimally usually lasts 3 months to 6 months. Or in some cases, it literally lasts the rest of the year, right? We have not got the green signal flashing yet. You can see right here we got one. So as soon as we switched, that was over here on July 26th of 2021. Bitcoin price was sitting at around $37,000. And we did go all the way up to $68,400, right? So you can see currently that that trend is still intact and it has not been broken yet. Now, here's some hopium for the bulls out there. So T Analyst points out that we might be right here. So he took this fractal from May 19th of 2019 to June 26th of 2019, where we had a very similar sort of structure. And there was that dip, there was that fake out, but then we continued upwards. Is that what we are actually expecting? Well, it is a possibility, right? One thing I do want to point out is we're either about to have history be made right now, or history is going to play out as we expect it to. Now, right now, this is the Bitcoin market cap or Bitcoin dominance, right, compared to altcoins. Now, this is the longest, arguably, that Bitcoin has ever stayed down in these levels, which is interesting because there are a lot of altcoins out there that aren't falling as hard as Bitcoin, but also, every single time we do get down into this area right here, you do tend to see Bitcoin dominance spike up. So does that mean that it's not a great time to be getting into altcoins? Well, I think that's a double-edged sword because honestly, if there's altcoins out there that you truly believe in, that you've been waiting for opportunities to accumulate, then right now we do have some legacy lows on these charts that could be an excellent opportunity to actually start dollar cost averaging into these altcoins. So we have to see, is Bitcoin going to break down to the downside and we're going to have an alt season before we have Bitcoin pump? I don't know. That would be the first that it's ever happened. But I am just going to point out a little bit of a warning sign right here that having Bitcoin this low, bottoming out, forming this pattern right here, could be a bear flag, but also historically, Bitcoin usually tends to increase in percentage after these levels. Just an observation, you do what you want with that data. But the thing that we cannot ignore, my friends, is that as much as Bitcoin, we want it to be asymmetric, we want it to be non-correlated. Well, unfortunately, we've had a lot of institutions coming in to Bitcoin. Nothing unfortunate about that. That's actually a good thing, but we do have Bitcoin's correlation with the NASDAQ 100 index reaching a new all-time high, which is telling us that if stocks are looking bearish, Bitcoin might be looking a little bit bearish as well. So this isn't something that we should be upset about. In fact, Kevin Svensson, he had been pointing this out. This is a screenshot from his YouTube video. I couldn't find the chart, but this is it right here. And essentially, he points out that anytime you have market volatility in traditional stocks, he uses the S&P 500 as an example, even if it's volatility sideways, you tend to see a Bitcoin downtrend. When you get an uptrend in stocks, you also get a Bitcoin uptrend. Now, here's the cool part about this. Yes, they're correlated. That may not be great on the short term, but overall, Bitcoin always outpaces any traditional stock. So once stocks do start to rally, you might as well just get into Bitcoin. Not financial advice, but Bitcoin blows stocks out of the water. Sadly, vice versa. When stocks tend to go sideways or down, Bitcoin falls even harder. Now, the scariest thing, and I'm not trying to freak anyone out, but we really haven't truly seen any type of a recession or a depression since Bitcoin has been around, right? Bitcoin was actually birthed out of the 2008 financial crisis. So ultimately, we've only seen economic recovery, if you want to call it that, even though we know inflation's up, but the stocks were up, right? Prices went up, housing was going up, everything's going up. It's a bubble, right? But nevertheless, we've never actually seen what Bitcoin would do in a bear market if traditional stocks went into a true bear market. That could be devastating for Bitcoin. I mean, considering the fact, I'm not trying to scare anyone, but Bitcoin has a tendency of dumping anywhere between 85 to 92% on just sideways uncertain volatility. If the markets traditionally had an 50% crash, what would happen to Bitcoin? Would Gareth Soloway be correct? Would we be seeing a $10,000 Bitcoin? Could that even happen again? Who would sell at those prices, right? Well, we can't ignore that there are some things right now that are happening that are sort of fueling that fear again globally, right? Like Spectator Index pointed out, we have China reporting 27,509 new daily coronavirus cases, the most since the pandemic has began. 130,000 COVID cases in Shanghai. Now, currently it says that there's no deaths. That's a good thing, right? But, nevertheless, I mean, I'm over it. I'm kind of over the whole COVID thing as far as I see it. It's here to stay, right? Like it's like a flu. It's going to keep evolving. There's going to keep being new strains. Hopefully over time we build our immunity, and that's just how I feel about it. But obviously everyone, including myself, everybody's tired of talking about this. But another thing that's freaking people out is that you're seeing right here, the world is on brink of a potential food shortage. In fact, the UN agency says that food prices have rose by 13% the last month, the fastest pace ever recorded. We've also seen the US Treasury bonds inverting, and we know that usually once this happens, we have about 12 months to 24 months before entering into a recession, right? Last time it happened was 2006. 2 years later, 2008 financial crisis. So if we do have a recession, if we do have a crisis, you have to understand that it's not a matter of people not believing in Bitcoin as a hedge or a store of value. It's the fact that they may be unemployed, out of a job. We could have prices skyrocketing if they can't get inflation under control. And some of these people, not just talking about traditional traders, hedging their bets against, Bitcoin. It could just be that people literally need to eat. They literally need to pay bills. So if we do go into some kind of a recession, which I'm not anticipating it happening overnight, could happen, right, in the next 12 to 24 months, but they may have to sell some of their crypto, sell some of their Bitcoin to get by, right? So I don't want you guys to think that today's video is doom and gloom, but you literally can't just only look at the positive side of things. There's always these factors in play. Like Arthur Hayes, he's the former CEO of BitMEX, co-founder of 100X. He put out this article. And actually, pretty much right after he put this out, the price dumped. Did this have anything to do with why the price dumped? I don't know. This guy does have a lot of influence on the markets, or at least he used to, right? So this is a very long article. I'm not going to go through it. But essentially, to break it down, there's these main points. So he says ultimately Bitcoin and Ether are highly correlated to the NASDAQ 100. If the NASDAQ tanks, excuse me, guys, it will take crypto down with it. If the NASDAQ stinks, yeah, well, it does kind of stink right now, right? He says unprofitable tech such as ARK got smacked as the US 2-year rate rose. Big tech has been saved for now by a few profitable names, but even it has traded lower. Also, the Fed and other central banks are fighting inflation and must therefore tighten monetary conditions, not loosen them. Now, keep in mind, a lot of people are anticipating, 25-point basis raise, 50, but if we go to 100 or something like that, that could be a little bit of a shock to the overall markets. He also mentions that the NASDAQ bounce failed at the 61.8 Fibonacci retracement level and will continue lower and below 10,000. Global growth will decline on higher commodity prices driven by continuation and possible escalation of the Russian-Ukraine war. This in absence of accommodative central banks will also weigh negatively on stocks. So he says by the end of the second quarter in June this year, I believe Bitcoin will be trading at around $30,000 and Ethereum will be trading at around $2,500. He says the annoying part is that there are a number of altcoins I have begun to accumulate because the prices are quite attractive, which is why I said prices could go lower. Bitcoin could go lower. Altcoins could go lower. It depends on your time frame, right? If you are afraid that we are going to go down to some of these levels, then sell out now and buy back lower. But if you are not investing more than you're willing to lose and you are keeping fresh capital on the side, right? Don't go, stop paying your mortgage or stop paying your rent to buy crypto. No, that's silly, guys. But 10% dollar cost average, you sleep better at night. Trust me, you buy a little high, you buy a little low. That's what I've been doing for 6 years, guys. Listen, I bought the top, 20K. I bought down at 3, and my first Bitcoin was 2. I've bought every possible level you can imagine. In hindsight, you know what I mean? It's just better opportunities to accumulate. But he does say, even though some of the coins are already down 25% from their all-time high, I don't believe even they can escape the crypto carnage. As such, I am buying crash of June 22 puts on both Bitcoin and Ether. So just to let you guys know, he's not shorting it, he's buying puts. So these are like options, right? So essentially, he is just saying that if the price at that day is that level, that's the price he's willing to buy it for. So this isn't saying you should short Bitcoin right now. In fact, if we actually go back to the Bitcoin chart right here, this would actually not really be a great area to short. It could go down, but that's very dangerous to be shorting at these levels, considering that this is sort of the upward sloping bottom trend, right? So you would want to be very careful about that. So that's that article. That's what he has to say. But like Velvet said, news really isn't relevant, right? You ever hear the saying, show me the charts, I'll tell you the news? There are some black swan events like when COVID hit, obviously, but ultimately people try to create narratives. They create reasons for why things happen. Strong dollar, rising rates, bond liquidity, US debt, negative GDP, Greece, stock valuations, oil prices, ISIS, Ebola, Syria, fiscal cliffs, crisis in Ukraine, retail sales, market bubble, Fed taper. If my video doesn't get demonetized with all those keywords together, I don't know what will. That was a lot of negative keywords for the YouTube algorithm. But, you know, Gainsey actually pointed out, he said, I didn't think there was anything worse than being bearish and making a lot of money while your friends lose their net worth. But being bullish and having crypto pump while stocks dump and there's a food shortage around the world, that'd definitely be worse. Now, he's obviously being a little bit funny, a little bit sarcastic, but is there a potential that it actually could do the reverse? So if you've stuck around this far, obviously, welcome to the bullish part of the video. So recently, you've actually seen even ARK Invest, which we know they have been down. A lot of them, let's be real, a lot of people are down. Actually, I know a guy down the road who does massive investments, someone I've known my whole life, and even his portfolio shot, right? So no one's really safe right now, and nobody really knows where to put their money, right? Dollar, inflation rising, assets falling, housing bubble, and even if you own real estate, your tenants can just tell you that they don't want to pay. What are you going to do? Can't kick them out. A lot of states, squatter rights. You can't kick your tenants out. Your tenants can live for like 6 months, right? Not pay you any rent. You still got to pay the rent, or you still have to pay the mortgage. You still have to pay your taxes, right? So it's scary. Where do you actually put your money? Well, ARK Invest has actually said that they completely sold out of their PayPal, whose Venmo is a big competitor, and they're actually looking to invest in more blockchain-related products. So here's actually a clip from the video right now.
Conference out of Cash App. That's from the company formerly known as Square. Block at this point, the company letting people invest their paychecks directly into Bitcoin, as well as adding something called the Lightning Network that allows instant payments. That is ARK's 6th largest holding. ARK notably sold, though, all of its holdings, completely got out of PayPal, which, of course, its Venmo is a big competitor to Cash App. Kathy Wood says PayPal might still be a winner in fintech at some point, but the ARK analysts had higher conviction on Block, in part because of Bitcoin.
I think the way Cash App is growing organically, as opposed to more of a top-down, let's get this thing moving, stretch, stretch, stretch. I think there's an organic movement. I think it's going to be fired up now by Bitcoin.
Kathy Wood still bullish on Bitcoin itself as well. She says, like those ARK ETFs, it's a long-term bet. Kelly, back to you.
Kate, very interesting that she sees now that Venmo story. I mean, look, if she's selling it, she's kind of saying it's over. For one of the biggest believers in these stocks and these stories and in this sector, that's got to be a tough one to swallow for Venmo and for PayPal.
Yeah, and she really pointed to the organic growth of Cash App. She talked about, things like the Bitcoin conference and the idea that people just want to sign up versus PayPal having the initiative of saying, you know what, we've got to go and launch this app to really compete with Cash App. She described it as Venmo following Cash App. So they said, it could be one of many winners, but they have a lot more conviction when it comes to what Block is doing with Cash App, and especially when it comes to Bitcoin. But yeah, that is tough news when it comes to PayPal.
So talking about what the whales are doing, though, are these guys buying? Well, interestingly enough, like Crypto Ferris pointed out, whale position update, 20 whales with over 1,000 Bitcoin offloaded above 46K. The majority are still holding. So we have seen some whales selling off, but there's been no big buys since the latest massive buys they did around 30K. Maybe that's why the 30K level is so attractive to these guys. Usually they buy for months and offload during parabolic runs. He says watching, then investing accordingly. But you can see essentially right here, you have these sell-offs, and that's, they're selling into the strength, right? And then down here, you can see the accumulation, and they're buying the dips. So, could this be something? Take it with a grain of salt. But nevertheless, guys, inflation has risen the most since 1981 as CPI jumps 8.5%. So this is still showing us that they're not really doing enough, right? So they are between a rock and a hard place. And a lot of people are waiting to see the results of the FOMC meeting. What will they do? Well, they're saying there's probably going to be multiple, 0.5%, 50 basis point raises, but the market is actually factoring this in. They are anticipating this to happen. It would only be a shock if they came out and said something like 1%, or 1.5%, some crazy number like that, which actually really isn't that crazy historically, but it would be higher than what they're expecting. But, like Geborger Box pointed out, US CPI came in at 8.5%, which means that inflation is likely already in the double digits. It's probably worse than they're telling us. Let's be honest. They are known to lie through their teeth when it comes about these numbers. He says a few years ago, these types of numbers were mythical stories associated with Venezuela, Argentina, Zimbabwe, Weimar, right? Central banks have failed. It is time for plan B. So he still says that Bitcoin is the answer. And slowly over time, I do believe Bitcoin is going to move from a risk off into a risk on. I saw a few YouTubers a couple days ago capitulating. Not going to call them out. Saying Bitcoin could fail. We might have one more exit pump and then that's it. And the good old Bitcoin run. Guys, Bitcoin has fallen between 80 and 95% multiple times. I have witnessed 3 of these in just my short time in crypto. And I will tell you, it's not going to zero. It's not going to zero, guys. What could end up happening, though, like Preston Pish points out, is there's a massive shock in economic markets brewing, and really soon. That's going to cause central banks around the world to aggressively reverse course in their tightening talk. The 40-year trend line in bond yields is breaking down, and YCC in the U.S. is right around the corner. So what do you think the U.S. is going to do? Do you think they're going to let it crash? They could do it. That might be the answer. It's going to be pretty terrible. Probably going to last half a decade. Of course, after that, things would eventually readjust and prices would figure out where they're supposed to be and, prices of housing and stocks. But I think the US's ego is a little bit too big to let that happen. So chances are they might step in and they might reverse what they're saying. You could see right here. In normal times, the Fed steers the economy by raising or lowering very short-term interest rates, such as the rate that banks earn on the overnight deposits. However, under yield curve control, or YCC, the Fed would target some long-term rate and pledge to buy enough long-term bonds to keep the rate from rising above its targets. This would be the only way for the Fed to stimulate the economy if bringing short-term rates to zero isn't enough. That may end up being a possibility, guys. So having a look sort of at the overall parabolic chart, I do want to end on some bullish stories right here. Like Decode Jar pointed out, all parabolas with above 50% linear correlation are cycles. All tops found as log 1.618 extension of cycle lows, which I showed you that on my video, one of my most popular videos I've actually put out recently, where we explained that if we took these cycles and went to the 1.618 area, you are looking at a cycle top of about, and he even says right here, 180K Bitcoin. Sub 50,000 potentially never seen again. So once we do break that once we do get to that $180,000 level, he doesn't think that we could get back below $50,000 for Bitcoin with a $1 million Bitcoin price projection at the end of the decade. And if you guys don't believe me, you want to see the video where we went over these exact levels. This was from, a month ago. Check it popping out above. Really, really great video. Very popular video. A lot of people enjoyed that video, so check it out. But one thing I want to point out before we go is, like Eric Belchunas pointed out, there's a new NASDAQ survey of financial advisors who control $26 trillion in assets, by the way. They find listen to this number, 72% of them would be more likely to invest in crypto if a spot ETF were available. Also, of the advisors investing in crypto, 86% of them plan to increase their investment, and their ideal allocation is 6%. Now, just think about those numbers. We don't even have these big sovereign wealth funds getting in yet, right? They're still waiting. And most of the guys, even just in the Western hemisphere, are waiting for that spot Bitcoin ETF in the US, which we have still not seen yet, which would create demand for the underlying asset. It is coming, my friends. There has been nothing but positives when it comes to Bitcoin. Now, a lot of people had a lot of opinions about Bitcoin Miami. You know, they said it wasn't a big deal, they whatever. The point is, guys, is even just the politicians or people who normally would be against it. Even Elizabeth Warren has sort of been somewhat neutral in the past few days. Not to mention the fact, the big one that's been circling is Janet Yellen actually explaining Bitcoin. This is a clip from a longer video. This is real. This is not fake. This is actually from a speech that she gave. And she even talks about Bitcoin.
On centralized intermediaries like banks and credit card companies. In 2008, a person or group of people using the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto proposed a decentralized peer-to-peer system for making and processing payments. A key challenge in digital payments is to prevent the same assets from being spent twice. The Bitcoin white paper proposed a novel method for validating transactions using cryptography that addressed the so-called double spend problem.
So as you guys can see, the narrative is in fact changing for Bitcoin, but just keep in mind that Bitcoin is still only 13 years old. We are seeing the highest correlation between Bitcoin and stocks, and as you guys can see right here, stocks are pushing down on some of their very significant levels, right? And it does in fact look like if the stocks do continue to fall, then unfortunately, Bitcoin will follow suit as well. But ultimately, long term, if you are looking to dollar cost average, then what does it matter if you buy Bitcoin at 42,000, 30,000, or 24,000 when Bitcoin is going to $1 million in the next decade? So that is where I leave you guys. That is my video for today. Lots of stuff I had to go over. We could talk about some other stuff another time, like the Jack Mallers announcement, which actually some people I think have that a little confused. It's not specific to just Strike. It's actually open source. Anyone can use it, but we'll save that for another day. I think today's video is long enough. Ultimately, I do remain bullish long term. Lots of things happening right now, macroeconomically. If you just got into crypto in the past year, welcome to the circus, my friends. Welcome to the fun. But I can tell you, every single time I, in the past 6 years, have ever thought Bitcoin was going to fail, was scared, panic sold, and I have panic sold before, trust me. I'm not perfect. Let's just say that. But I will tell you that historically, every single time price recovers, and not only does it recover, but it absolutely blows the previous all-time high out of the water. So that being said, I hope you guys are feeling good, looking good, having an awesome time. I am back. I have nothing to do. I'm going nowhere, guys. I have no more trips. I'm staying home, finally getting some beautiful weather in New York, so you can expect daily crypto content from me for a while now. In fact, I want to actually up my content. If you guys actually stayed this late in the video, this is for you guys personally out there, the hardcore fans. Most of the people that just come for price action, they leave, halfway in the beginning of the video. I do want to start doing more interviews. I do want to start talking to more people in the space. I want to sort of build this channel out, make it a little bit more than just me always talking in front of the green screen. Let me know if you would like me to talk about more altcoins, or even just talk to more, leaders in the space, or even just do more collaborations with other crypto YouTube channels just to kind of get other perspectives, things of that nature. Let me know what you guys think. Also, if you guys didn't see, I was actually on the news. I was on CBS News. That was crazy. Come on, Twitter. Verify me. Hello? Okay. Anyway, guys, thank you for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I make these videos. We will not be taking another week off for a very long time. I love you. You're awesome. And remember, if you do want to trade, be safe out there. But I do have tutorials popping up right here, right now. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.